Hey everybody, it's Laurel. I'm so happy to see everybody today. Today I'm going to be starting an introductory look at the 7 Hermetic principles and sacred geometry and how that relates to our spiritual growth and ways that we can put that information to good use. The 7 Hermetic principles are named the Hermetic principles because they were attributed to an ancient philosopher, Hermes Trismegistus, or Trismegistus, depending on how you want to say it, which basically means that this person, Hermes, was, what's the word? I guess he was extremely smart for his time, if you believe that he was a single person who walked the earth and was just very advanced and had, a very advanced ability to think through ideas. This is in the ancient times of Egypt, prior to what we think of as ancient Egypt, their original civilization, and probably came in through the Sumerians. But at any rate, Hermes is the name that the Greeks give to their messenger god, and the Egyptians called this same personality Thoth. Thoth. And Thoth is the god that has the long beak of the bird. And that personage has been given the credit for bringing humanity this very important knowledge about how our universe works and how we can fit into that working and make the best use of it for ourselves when we're manifesting what we desire, which is basically what everybody's doing, but what Wiccans and witches kind of focus a lot on, manifesting not only physical comfort and needs, but mentally we're trying to always manifest ourselves into our best possible self. Now that idea, the idea of turning lead to gold, which we now know really probably meant turning your innate instinct into a refined individual who understands the meaning behind the mirror. Our man Thoth, or Hermes, is the personage that most people would agree brought original philosophical thought to human beings. Now, the first principle of Hermeticism is one called mentalism, which kind of sounds weird, but basically it just means all is mind. Everything is mental. Everything that we see, do, want, have, touch, feel is all one thing, one great universal mind in which we are participating in some sense. And I don't think it's really that hard for most people to sort of understand that idea, but the more you think about it, the more complicated it gets, until you finally come to just say, well, I think, therefore I am. And that's basically what that means. We're all part of the universal mind. We think we're here, so we exist. The second important principle is correspondence. And if you've ever been in a Wiccan ritual or most pagan rituals, you might have heard them say something like, as above, so below. And that's exactly what correspondence means. That whatever is happening at the meta level is also happening at the micro level, and it's happening at the mega level as well. So at the earth level, at the society level, at the personal level, at the microscopic level, and so on, all the way down to the atomic level, and whatever goes beyond that, I don't know. But essentially, it is informing us that the universe is in harmony, whether we get it or not, whether we perceive it to be harmonious or not. It is harmonious, even if we perceive disharmony, because we are only one small part of the big giant mind that's doing all of this thinking and existing. So the pattern of, this is where the idea of the tree of life comes from, that we can move from the lower world to the middle world to the highest worlds up into, you know, spheres we haven't even realized yet, because it's all running up and down this sort of corridor of power that people can reach out to and at least try to use to their best advantage. And the more we do it, the better we get at it. And we start when we're little people. If we get what we want, we become confident that we can get what we want, and we just march on through life and get what we want. There's disappointments, there's setbacks, that's just part of being a human. But essentially, we are able to get what we want. Because it's universal mind, though, every thought then becomes a thing. So you have to think about what you're thinking about. You have to be careful what you wish for. That's the common way of saying that. So right now we're talking about two: mentalism, correspondence. The third one is vibration. These three principles are not mutable. They are not changeable as far as we can tell. There is no thing in the universe that does not exist within these three principles. Vibration, I think we've all been talking about vibration since at least the 60s. We have songs about it. But a vibration is essentially that nothing ever rests. There is no end in the end. There's no stopping this train from moving. It's always vibrating. Everything has a vibration. Everything that is real has a vibration. Everything we can't even see has a vibration. There are colors we cannot see. There are sounds we cannot hear, and yet we know they're there. They are a vibration that our ears cannot pick up, but perhaps an elephant or a whale could hear the very deepest sounds, and we certainly know that dogs and other creatures can hear very, very high sounds. So just because we can't perceive it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And the whole thing with vibration is that everything is vibrating simultaneously in this field, this great mind at the same time. So these are the three immutable laws or principles of the universe. Now, mutable laws or principles include the following: polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. So we'll look at polarity very quickly, because I think most people understand spectrum, like I just said, with colors or sounds, but also with really anything we can measure. We can find that there is a spectrum of that thing: behaviors, intelligences, they're just whatever, our own feelings. Love and hate are on the same spectrum. You can love unconditionally and move all the way through, I don't really like this, to I hate this. And it's all basically the same vibrational frequency. It just goes down as you become more entrenched in negativity, because it slows you down. At least that's the theory. I believe that. I don't think that we really need to spend too much time on that, but I think when we're talking about the spectrum, if anybody here has ever had to do water tests, or test your pool or your drinking water, or like I used to keep fish all the time, I had to do water tests all the time. A pH test tells you whether the water is acid or base. Does it have a lot of acids in it, bringing the pH down? Or does it have a lot of base in it, bringing the pH up? A vinegar would be acid. A bleach would be base. They're still both liquids. They still both exist on that vibrational level, but they are two very different things. So, next one is rhythm. And even though it sounds like rhythm, like music, what it's really talking about is that there is a flow at all times. Along with the idea that everything is vibrating, there's also a flow. And I think recently they've discovered that the universe itself is flowing outwards It is not static in any way, shape, or form, and it is not so much imploding as it is continuing to explode, which is fascinating and is at the, what I would say, ultra mega level of understanding. But in this situation with rhythm, basically there's an in and out. There's breathing out, there's breathing in. There's pulling something upwards, pulling your mood up, finding ways to boost your energy. There's ways to dampen it. There's ways to make yourself tired or sleepy or, you know, unconscious, whatever. But there are different ways that we experience our own personal little section of the universe, and we make decisions, and those decisions affect, well, basically, we're moving into cause and effect, which is number 6. Everything that we decide on, we create an effect. And most of us get that, you know, if I am thirsty and I open the refrigerator and I pull out a container and I pour the milk, the effect is I have a glass of milk and I drink the milk or water. I haven't really drank milk in ages. But when people say, you know, you really have to be careful what you wish for, they're kind of really not joking around, because you can unwittingly make a decision some night when, you know, you're half asleep and saying, oh, I really wish I could do blah, blah, blah. And your subconscious is going to start to work on that thing that maybe you don't really wish it, but for some reason your subconscious has picked up on it and begins to manifest that for you by creating circumstances, by finding, bumping into somebody that suddenly brings that thought to fruition. So the whole thing with being a witch is that we basically acknowledge that we are trying to manipulate our reality. We don't want to just sort of blindly walk along. We want to acknowledge our reality as best as we can figure it out, and we want to change it in some ways, usually lots of ways. And we know we can, because of these, because of the laws, because of these particular situations. The final one, and the one I've sort of been avoiding, is gender, and it even says sex, but it goes to the duality aspect. For Wiccans and lots of pagans, there is a goddess along with a god in deity. And that is the big difference between us and folks that just have a singular godhead. Having said that, I think that most pagans understand, and certainly most witches understand, that we're not talking about a big guy up on a cloud any more than we were in Christianity. And we're not talking about a big lady up in a cloud either, although we can personally envision that to help us reach out to that vibration, because that vibration we hope will come towards us and make us more successful, or fulfill some need or desire that we have, or give us the thoughts that we need to move forward in our plan. But it sets us apart from the Abrahamic religions, obviously, and it makes it a little bit, originally it was, you know, strictly mystery tradition type stuff, which goes thousands of years back with these exact principles. These principles were not always available to everybody. But even when they are, lots of people just don't know about it, or just haven't come across them yet. So my thing is, let's look at these. Let's look at how they are working for us in our life. And we'll go on with that. But the gender sex thing, basically, again, this is a mutable property or principle. It's not really about gender like our parts, okay? It's about yin and yang, the fact that there is opposites that are not necessarily in competition, that work together. They don't work well separately and alone. So if there is light, there must be dark. It must be so, or you wouldn't be able to perceive light. So all really heavy duty ideas, but nothing that any of us haven't heard in a Beatles song, let's face it. So I hope you enjoyed finding out a little bit more about the 7 Hermetic principles. And I also hope that you'll join me when I start exploring those principles more in depth in a later time. I also wanted to let you know that the sacred geometry part of all of this is actually what started me going back to the 7 Hermetic principles, which I had, studied on and off throughout my tenure as a Wiccan and as a witch. And the symbols that are in sacred geometry are some of the most simple shapes that we learned in grade school, of course, things like the circle, which of course represents so many different things to us as human beings, our community, ourself, a magic circle, the whole world, again with the meta and micro type alliances. And then we have other ones that start the whole geometric process. And this is basically the beginning of that process, is when we start to split that circle up and divide it into sections, we can begin to make other shapes. Another one of the most basic symbols is the triangle. And everybody knows about the triangle. And it will eventually become this tetrahedron, which as each part of is added to the next, the symbols become more and more complex. Here's the other last really basic symbol, which is the square. And they all interconnect, and all you mathematicians and engineers out there will know exactly what I'm talking about. Then it becomes a cube. And all of these symbols, these drawings, are representations of our three-dimensional world in one way or another. Here's our hexagon. Of course, I think of bees. In fact, they've got it in yellow to show you, like beeswax. And you'll see that the little flower on the side there is the beginning of a very important shape, and the reason that I started this whole path all over again, which is the seed of life. And of course, flowers and seeds and all that can be connected to bees. Bees are important to everybody. We're worried about our bees right now. So all of these things are coming into play and really becoming very obvious right now. And this is the one, Metatron's cube, that I keep seeing on products, on car bumpers, and so on and so forth. And that started me wondering, what is this sacred geometry thing about? And I'd like to go deeper into exploring sacred geometry with you all at a different time. Because it's really fascinating, but it goes back to, I've studied for years on the Tree of Life, and this is the Kabbalah Tree of Life, which is the standard old school way of looking at the Tree of Life. There are numerous illustrations of the Tree of Life, and to me, the Tree of Life not only recognizes the fact that, trees and people are intimately connected in every way possible, really, earth, air, and water, but that our place in nature, is real. We are not above it. We are inside of it. And that brings me back to the whole aspect of what we are trying to do inside of ourselves, become at peace with ourselves, become at peace with other people, has to also move out into the world through our actions and thoughts. And sometimes, as you use, we want to do a lot of action, and that's great, but not all of us can always participate in that. And I want to encourage the folks that aren't able to be in active protesting or what have you, to remember that as you work on yourself, as you work on your emotions, as you work on your structure, your situation, you are affecting the entire universe technically, and that when you send that energy out into the world, it is really real. Your thoughts are things. And that's both exciting and challenging because we have to be careful what we think about. So I just want to make sure that if you are in a situation, as I often am, of not being able to go out right now and not being able to do some of the things that perhaps you used to get a lot of joy from, being in community, to please remember to be in community with yourself and your closest friends or family that you're with, and to send that out into the universe as a healing methodology for all of us, the bees, everybody, and to not despair, because it is just part of the universe adjusting itself. And try to remember that the universe is in harmony, even if we don't understand that, even if we can't see that. And believe me, it is hard, even after many years of following this path that tells me that what I'm telling you is the truth. It's still really hard as a regular old human to accept what's going on right now as okay or as part of the situation. Of course we want to affect it. Of course we want it to change, but we also have to understand it's going to change one way or the other. Yes, our thoughts are actions. So send out the positivity that this world so desperately requires, and perhaps put slightly less energy into despairing for our world. And try to remember that we are able to move our minds out into the universe just as we are able to move our minds down into our own bodies. So go ahead, get outside, look at a butterfly, do a little meditation, and just try to understand the interlocking that's happening, and realize that everything is speeding up in a lot of ways. And the best way to get in there and help out, probably right now, unless you are super politically connected, is to send out good vibrations, okay? You know, I know y'all do that anyway, so I'm gonna let you go. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Enjoy, be safe, take care of yourself, take care of others. Love you. Talk to you later.